Hi, everybody. We are back live again for Skidmore's Giving Day. And here with me, joining me is Jordana Dym, the director of the John B. Moore Documentary Studies Collaborative, more commonly known as MDOCS. Jordana is a professor of history. Her research and teaching interests include Latin America, the history of cartography, and public history. Jordana joined the Skidmore faculty in 2000 after undergraduate studies in history that took her to Russia and France, a stint in the Foreign Service that expanded her horizons to Central America and North Africa, and graduate studies at New York University. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
I did want to let everyone know before we get started that Jordana will take questions from our viewers. So if you have some, send them to hashtag Skidmore for Life, or click on our chat button. We'd be happy to get to those. So to start us off, can you tell us what is MDOCS?
MDOCS is a new program at Skidmore that started in 2014 that has as its main goal to help our students and faculty and staff who have projects that come out of their research, evidence-driven stories they want to tell, be able to communicate those to a broader audience. So to bring our education in such a way that our students can tell compelling stories, not only in writing papers or delivering conference talks, but creating exhibits or developing sound stories and podcasts, films, photography, whatever the story asks for. And we offer a variety of ways for people to access MDOCS. We're a shared resource. We are a program with classes, with workshops. So give us 2 hours, give us a credit, 4 credits, or come work with us in summer classes, Storytellers Institute, and we'll meet you where you are and help you take your project to the next stage.
So you mentioned that it was started in 2004, so it's still a pretty young program. Can you tell us how it all came about?
It's the best kind of Skidmore synergy. There were a variety of things going on campus and off campus that helped us envision something that became MDOCS. We had faculty across the disciplines in history, in anthropology, in the sciences, in the arts, who have been working for a very long time with the community and doing projects that connect with and support local community organizations, taking the professional skills they develop in their discipline and applying them in the community. So there were people always reaching out in public. And so faculty were thinking, well, the skills that I got in graduate school are not necessarily the skills that will help me build an exhibit or make a video. How do I transition from storytelling for my peers to storytelling that will excite people? I'm a historian when I go to cocktail parties occasionally, and people ask me, well, what do you do? And I say, I'm history. And they're, oh, I had boring classes in high school and I memorized names and dates and facts. And I said, that's not history. You really love history. They say, no, I don't. And I said, but have you watched Who Do You Think You Are? Do you take your children to a museum when you have time off? And they were like, oh yeah, I love all that stuff. So the idea from a faculty side was really to bridge and to help our faculty be able to reach people with the skill sets, develop the tools that make it exciting. Mm-hmm. And in our community of donors, we had somebody who said, you know, liberal arts is really important. The lifetime learning, the critical thinking, the analysis, the research, really important. But Skidmore students don't always know how to explain the toolkit they have. So how can Skidmore develop a program that helps them transition into a world with a toolkit that is understandable to modern employers? And so he had a real interest, this is Jim Town and the Moore family and Sue Town, in helping us think about film as a mode of storytelling in local history and stories that matter to a community. And he came and he talked to us, and a bunch of faculty over several years thought about how we could take those two impulses and pull them into a program. And MDOCS, the idea of documentary, evidence-based storytelling in a way that excites people in the age of serial and the podcast, in the age of documentaries on film and on YouTube and in festivals and in hometowns. All of those things sort of came together in documentary, was the thread that was able to build student interest, faculty interest, and community interest.
And so why is this program important to the way faculty teach and students learn?
I think it helps, MDOCS helps us transition into a world where we can connect, where the work that I do, that you're Like, really? Why would I care about the history of maps? And I say, well, actually, if you look at a map the way I look at a map, here, let me sit down with you and show you. And you say, oh, there's really cool stuff going on. It's not just about getting from point A to point B. But I can't sit down with you times 1,000. But I could build an exhibit where I can tell that story in a way that might make you excited. So I think providing, MDOCS says, we know these tools are tools that matter to our faculty, but we haven't been trained in it. So we've hired people, we bring professionals in to teach. We take really talented members of our staff who has skills in making and bring them into the classroom and connect them up as supports to faculty. So faculty can add this kind of assignment or this kind of work for their students without becoming expert themselves in the toolkit of making. So they remain experts in the content and the approach and how to get good material, and we support them in developing new stories. Conversely, students across the curriculum in the sciences, in the arts, our Skidmore students are so interdisciplinary. It's rare to have somebody who's only interested in one thing. They're hungry for the tools. So by creating a set of classes and workshops that they can take, whether they're science students with a really heavy workload, we've developed 1-credit courses really tailored to students who don't have a lot of time or who just want to try something to get a really great experience. And then they can bring that back to that program. By not creating a major, we really have said, we want to support you where you're coming from. We don't want to create something else that will compete for everybody's time. And so our idea of being a resource, a toolkit for people really seems to resonate.
What would you say has been the reaction from the students thus far?
Our classes are full with really long wait lists. So now that they've found us, I would say the students are really excited. I'm a history professor, so I'm used to fighting with my students, not about doing the research, which they care about, but getting the formatting done and finishing a project to professional standards. When I think my best anecdote on this front to say how enthusiastic students are is that last year in May, when classes went over, when we were in that week between finishing up exams and graduation, when seniors are having a really fun week and they're basically waiting for that moment. And usually there are great opportunities to get out and do things in Saratoga Springs in the area, and they're focused on just relaxing. I walked into Library 113, which is our makerspace, which has computers and production space, and found half a dozen graduated seniors finishing projects, planning on, out of their own brains, developing interviews for alumni weekend because they were becoming alumni and wanted to get those stories for a podcast. And I thought, this is great. We found something that they're so passionate about. They're inside in May instead of out just taking a well-deserved rest because they want to finish things or they want to start something else while they can. Yeah. So they're enthusiastic, not just for a single project, but for beginning to see how the toolkit really helps them. Yeah.
Very exciting. Speaking of projects, can you give us some examples of projects that the students and faculty have been working on to date?
Sure. We're 2.5 years old, so we started with no production classes. We really had to reach out and find people on campus in the community who would come in and teach. In our first year, we were really lucky to connect with Eileen McAdam of the Sound and Story Project of the Hudson Valley. And she came in and worked with Sue Bender, a retired faculty member, to start up our retiree interview project. So working with them, we've started an oral history collection of retirees and both faculty and staff who are beginning to help us tell the story of Skidmore College. And in our very first set of interviews, we were fortunate to interview David Porter, a former president, and Ann Palamountain, a former First Lady of Skidmore. And very, very unfortunately for the community, both of those people have passed away in the previous 2 years. But the stories and getting really wonderful sound and really excellent interviews allowed us to share some of why those people mattered at a moment of memorial. And so creating oral histories has helped us start doing a better job of building on Mary Lynn's book, Make No Small Plans, to be a better caretaker of our own stories. Students in, we had a graduating senior who took her very first video class in the spring last year, who made a video about a short documentary film about an art student friend of hers whose project was doing beautiful portraits of peoples in a senior retirement home. And that short film, 5 minutes long, is a really beautiful meditation, both on the project of art and beauty, but also on the life that's left in these seniors. And her short film not only went on to win a prize at a regional program, 15 Min Max, which is a short film program festival run by St. Rose College, but was also accepted into a college, to a film festival in San Francisco this fall. And so we were able, through opportunity funds, to send her there as a young alumna to meet, to network, to go to Berkeley and think about their journalism program. And again, she was able to take audio doc one semester and get sound right, and then turn that into a really thoughtful video and have a project that is a really nice calling card for getting into grad school or a career in media. And that's one example of a student project that came out of a class. Another example on maps, which I love, is we partnered with the Saratoga history community, the History Museum, the city historian, who's an alumna from MALS, the county historian, who's an American Studies grad, the local library. And to commemorate Saratoga's 100th anniversary as a city, we did research and with students over 2 years developed a database of historic maps, and then did the first ever guest curated exhibit at the local history museum, and told the story of the history of Saratoga Springs through 40 maps with original maps from the local archives. That project allowed the county historian to stabilize a beautiful manuscript map of the Cayuga patent, so all of upstate New York, the gift that Queen Anne gave in the early 1700s. Local donor who had a collection shared their stories and their maps with us. So it allowed our students to take GIS mapping and take old maps and show how they fit on the modern landscape, but also arts administration students to figure out how to budget and plan the exhibit, art history students to bring visual analysis, history students to research some of the facts and in the archives. So it allowed us to say this is a history story, a Saratoga story, but bring students across the curriculum to participate. So those kind of community partnerships are things that we really value, helping students tell stories that matter to them, like Lisa Fierstein, who did the art video, and stories that matter to communities or working together for other people.
Yeah, it's so wonderful, the interdisciplinary component of this, which I know is really sort of the foundation of it. Last spring, I know we had donors to help fund the student-run film festival. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how gifts made this opportunity a reality?
Absolutely. We're ambitious. We do one thing each semester and then we say, well, what can we layer on? Now that the classes are going better and there we have students doing work, well, let's create a Storytellers Institute. And I'm going to back up and talk a little bit about the Storytellers Institute,
sure,
which
please.
is why we decided festival planning was necessary. So during the year, we have classes and workshops. We have community partnerships. We also have in June a 5-week hybrid creative academic residency, which we call the Storytellers Institute, which brings professionals on campus for 5 weeks and 8 students with projects and 2 faculty who are developing documentary projects together. And during the Storytellers Institute, we do some public programming, and the goal of our donor is to put this place on the map. And the goal for us is to do that by doing what we do best, which is making it a space for creative work to reach our Capital District community and beyond, but also to bring people together in conversation and become a place where documentarians come to recharge, get good ideas, and go back and connect with their own communities, whether they're practitioners who, when they're living through their art, or whether they teach, whether they're professionals in other fields, creating a space where really interesting ideas come out. So each year we have a theme. Our first was family. Our second was last summer's institute, and we focused, what did we focus on? Now I'm drawing a blank, isn't that crazy? This year we're about to do space and place. Last year, wow, momentary lapse. I'll come back to that. But now I'm going to mutter. So the Storytellers Institute has a theme, and through the theme, we're able to bring a really exciting group of people together. Through the programming, which represents the theme, we need to know how to program an event that excites people, that gets them in the door. And last year we created something called a Ozium. Our public event would be a 3-day or 2-day weekend with documentary work from across the disciplines, bringing people in conversation who might normally only go to sound festivals or film festivals or talk to other photographers or exhibit designers. We wanted all these storytellers in the room and see what kind of things gelled. And we did a pretty good job. But we're not experts in festivals. We're experts in bringing people together to host an event and a conversation. And so it became clear there were 2 things missing in our summer programming. One of which was a real professional approach to festival organizing, our cross between a symposium and a festival. And the other of which is what we also do best, which is student work and a way to bring student makers to our festival and our festival weekend to expand the reach by getting not just Skidmore, but other students in the room. So we came up in the spring with this idea that what we really needed was to help students learn not just how to make, but how to connect to the world that shares the work. And part of that is learning how festivals work from the inside, and what better way to do that than by running your own. So we're solving 2 birds with 1 stone with the festival class. Tom Yoshikami, who comes to us from University of Wisconsin-Madison, is teaching a course. He's been a film programmer for many years. He's worked with student groups on student organized programming. So he's working with a group of students on theory this fall. They went to Doc NYC, they've talked to documentary festival organizers, they're doing reading on the history of exhibition, of different forms of programming, and then they're coming up with the plan for a piece of our Festosium for the summer where the students will run an open search for student work on the annual theme. So the festival, but what we said to advancement, we haven't budgeted for this, but we need to do it. It's really important next year. And so there was an alumni giving sort of a mini Kickstarter style crowdfunding campaign in spring where we were able to exceed our goal of raising $5,000 to help get the students to festivals, to buy them the passes, to bring in experts to meet with. And hopefully Tom is a fabulous, not only teacher, but a miser in the best possible sense. He's hoarded that budget that we've gotten for him. And so we still have a little bit of money left over to help kickstart the festival in the summer. And they're working on a budget, so we need to know how much more we need to do to make this dream a reality.
Can you give us any inside information about the festival, or is it still in the planning phase?
It's still in the planning phase. At the end of the semester, I hope they'll come to me and say, this is what we're doing. But I think the exciting thing is our Festosium, our vision of documentary as not just film. Most people use documentary as a noun. Oh, I'm making a documentary. We use it as an adjective. I'm making a documentary film. I'm developing a documentary exhibit, or I'm doing a documentary podcast, to identify that really the evidence, the research, the storytelling skills transfer within those disciplines, and then they transfer back out into history or anthropology or dance, if they're writing papers on the history of dance or dance culture. And so how that actually works out, I think you'll find that it looks a little different, but we won't know exactly until the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm. I remember, so we worked together on the crowdfunding project, and I believe it was one of the first ones that we had funded in the spring. What was that feeling like, knowing that, you know, this generous support from our donors was able to make this, you know, vision a reality?
I think it was wonderful. It was wonderful that we were able to reach and exceed the goal, and that some of the people who donated were folks who'd been in the industry for a while, so that was a vote of confidence. Some were recent alumni who were just excited that this kind of program was building. And so we have somebody who's working down with Fusion in Florida, somebody working in New York City, who had been affiliated with our very first classes. And even though their donations were those of recent alumni, it was just really exciting to say, yeah, we want to stay connected. We see the value, and we're excited for this kind of project that gets students this kind of new experience in the business. And again, arts administrations, management, business, creative students are going to come together to help build this because we need that connection of skill sets. It's not, you can't learn everything and do it on your own. You need different people, the people who know how to run the legal side of it, right? The ethical side, all of that.
Yeah, exciting. I can't wait to see it unfold. So
Excited.
What do you think are the next steps for MDOCS as it continues to grow?
So there are several next steps. We never have one. First one, I think, is we're currently concluding a search for someone to direct the Storytellers Institute. So this program started as a dream. It started as a series of conversations with faculty and staff across campus, with the donors. It grew into discussions with alumni who are really helpful to us as we get going. But it's had one director who's directed building an academic year program and building the summer program. And that's been quite a job. And now that it's doing well and we're running 8 to 10 classes a semester, and we have 4 to 6 workshops, and we have student-led workshops, and we have professionals who come in, it's just more to do that and then do a really good job on the summer. So we're looking for someone who can take over the vision for the Institute and help us grow it and keep it connected to the academic year. So that's one. Growing the Institute, making it a place where we have a space for our advanced students, layering in classes that we can support so that students can do things in a focused way that they might not be able to do. We've started with a few. We're looking to grow that. During the academic year, I think we're looking to develop more of a sequence for students who do want to pursue more advanced work. One of the exciting things we piloted this semester was the brainchild of screenwriter in the community, Nicole Cody, and Vicki Riley, who's the college videographer and head of our whole video program. And they created our first crew-based class where students who could be writer-directors or cinematographers or sound designers for short films. And that class is doing incredibly well and inspiring the students, and they're seeing that that's not even the full crew that they need. They need a producer who can help them organize and plan and location shoot and budget. So developing opportunities like that where students have somewhere to go once they've got the toolkit with their projects, either with MDOCS or with their faculty, so that those stories can grow and those connections and those professional abilities can be honed in a way that they can just transition more easily to the next stage.
So fascinating. Well, thank you so much for being
You're
here.
welcome.
It was such a pleasure having you, and I know I speak for many when we say we're so excited to see everything that's happening, and we look forward to watching the program continue to grow.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and the one thing I haven't talked about is the alumni who have been a part not only as donors but as advice to our students. They've come and given lectures and workshops, and building those connections with our folks in working across a variety of disciplines has also, I think, been very important in being able to connect our students to that alumni network. So I'm delighted to be here and be able to talk a little bit in that context.
Absolutely, and it's so great we have such a close-knit community to be able to tap into those resources. So, well, thank you again for coming, and we'll be back soon.